Sapp has been the top 15 player each of the last 3 seasons, according to ESPN's Real Plus Minus. And veteran Zach Randolph has reportedly drawn interest from a number of teams, including the Kings, Thunder, and Clippers. We now welcome in our front office insider, Tom Penn. We got to talk about Taj Gibson signing a 2-year, $28 million contract with Minnesota. So how does this begin to impact the T-Wolves now?
Yeah, the makeover continues.
Ooh.
Think about the Timberwolves and what they started with. They were all young, and their core youngs are Wiggins and Towns, the #1 picks in the draft, low-salary players. Now, we all know what happened on draft day. Tom Thibodeau gave up a bunch of young assets, and Jimmy Butler comes in as the veteran, as the leader. And then look at what it does. They have $32 million in cap room. So he went shopping, and he goes and gets Jeff Teague to sign as a replacement player when he moves Rubio out. So now the makeover continues. He's a coach, and he's the general manager. Now you got the general manager, president of basketball operations, saying to Taj Gibson, I know you, I like you, I love you. I'll give you more than what we had him projected at. Start him at, say, $13 million. He'll go up to maybe closer to $15 million on the second year. That gets it in. They still have a little bit of cap room to play with, but this is a different deal now, Tony.
Yeah.
Veteran, and then the 2 young guns that they're really building around. This is Tom Thibodeau at his best. It's a great makeover in Minnesota. They're legit in the West.
You approve? You like?
Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up. Now let's talk about the 76ers. They have added veterans J.J. Redick and Amir Johnson. What's their lineup looking like?
So the 76ers thing is a different kind of makeover. It takes a while here, right?
Yeah, it's been taking a while.
There's a lot of excitement around the youth, a lot. But we have no idea if they're going to be ready to go because, look, they have so little real experience. 0 games played.
0.
31 career games played. You look at the rest of the roster, they just haven't had much. So what did they add? They add Redick and they add Johnson. They add 745 career games. They add a shooter in 690 career games. Big difference now. And you think about Fultz as their rookie. He can be replaced by Bayless, who knows his way around the court. You're starting to see a nice combination by Brian Colangelo of bringing on experience with all this promising youth. And then you got to think of what else he's done. They still have $15 million in cap space this year, but Tony, here's the key. He's protecting this $40 million in cap space for next year because these 2 free agent acquisitions are both 1-year deals, right? 1 year,
Yep.
1 year. That means they can go away after a year, and he'd have that $40 million to spend. So for Brian Colangelo, nice supplementing of the core going forward. All the young guys. Let's put the #1 pick back up here because that's core to the future. You got all this inexperience now with these experienced guys. Good moves.
TP, you're the best.
Oh,
Anything
you're
that
the
seems
best.
impossible or difficult, he knows how to make it simple. Just like the next guy, Michael Leaves.
Yeah, we've got more news, guys. Adrian Wojnarowski reporting for us at this hour that Raptors forward Serge Ibaka has agreed to a 3-year deal to remain in Toronto. League sources say the deal is worth $65 million. The 27-year-old averaged just under 15.7 rebounds a game last season for Toronto after coming up from the Magic after he left. They're not money like it's the 1st and the 15th, trying to keep that band together. We'll talk about them in a moment. We have Chris Haynes here with us, NBA reporter, and so many news items been breaking as of late, including Taj Gibson, Chris, going to Minnesota for 2 years and $28 million. This reunites Gibson with Butler and Coach Thibodeau. Of course, he was with the Bulls. Why do you think Minnesota wanted Taj Gibson so badly?
Well, obviously, it's the familiarity that Thibodeau has with not only Taj Gibson, but Jimmy Butler. He's trying to add toughness to this group. You got a young, impressionable team that is talented in all this world. We look at Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. But now it's toughness and it's veteran leadership. Now I think this Minnesota squad is prepared to take that next step in the West. It's the great West migration going on right now. And now I think if you look at from top to bottom roster-wise, Minnesota can compete with pretty much anybody outside of the top teams in the West.
And he also brings defense,
no doubt,
to this squad, which Thibodeau is all about. He knew that when he was in Chicago, so it helped a young team with some defensive presence as well.
Now let's talk about the team that's spending, and it doesn't matter because they're bringing the whole super team back together. Now, you reported late last night that Andre Iguodala agreed to re-sign for a 3-year, $48 million contract. How much pressure was on Golden State to bring Iggy back?
Immense pressure, because you have to remember, with KD opting out, allowing the Warriors to retain the rights to Iguodala, Warriors could have spent anything comparable to keep Iguodala, comparable to anything out there on the market.
Right.
Now, if they were to let him leave, don't get him back, they could not have spent that money on somebody else outside of the team. That's why it was very important for the Warriors to lock him up, and they locked him up for a good deal. Look, I was told that the initial offer that they gave him was night and day compared to what he ended up getting.
And that's why he took those meetings with other teams.
And that's exactly why. Now, just remember, if that initial offer wasn't, I don't want to say disrespectful, but if it wasn't so low, we wouldn't have went through all those visiting Houston, San Antonio, making the Warriors kind of sweat, and then getting them to fly out to Los Angeles late last night. So it was a play, but it definitely worked, man. That's a great deal for somebody who's 33 years old, guaranteed.
It's business, man. You got to get leverage how you can, and that's what Iguodala did. Okay, so now the only thing the Warriors have to do is re-sign KD.
That's the easy part.
You said it's the easy part.
That's the easy part.
So you're saying there's no stumbling blocks whatsoever.
We just went through the stumbling block. The stumbling block was Iguodala. Yes. KD opting out allowed for this to happen, allowed for Golden State to be able to put themselves in a chance to give Iguodala an adequate amount of salary. Now you're going to see shortly, I was told shortly, Golden State, Kevin Durant start to negotiate and get that deal done. It probably look like a one-and-one type of deal, but it'll happen.
And then he can be a free agent again if he wants to be next summer.
Correct.
A lot of money.
But if he chooses the one-and-one, if he chooses not to opt free agency next summer, that sets himself up for the Supermax.
There you go. All about the Supermax. Steph Curry just got a Supermax.
It looks good.
I want a Supermax.
Good luck with that.
We all want a Supermax.
Good luck with that, Mike.
Chris Haynes, good stuff, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, my guy.
Hit 15% of the time, landing only 92 punches. Teddy Atlas, very unhappy with that. Mark Nelson thought he was going to fight it. Stephen A. Smith was 117-111 to one judge, 115-113. What would you take away from this decision?
That it was a bogus decision, that it was highway robbery, and I think the officials, Waleska rolled in, Chris Flores and Ramon Cerdan should be ashamed of themselves. There's no reason on earth for Jeff Horn to win this fight. He lost 8 of the 12 rounds. He lost a 2-point round in the 9th round where he almost got stopped. The referee came over to the corner and let him know, I'm going to stop this fight if you don't show me something in the next round. And that took his team of trainers and what have you literally begging the official not to stop the fight. There's no question in my mind that Manny Pacquiao got robbed, just like he got robbed against Timothy Bradley. It's really unfortunate to see this in the sport of boxing. It was a good fight, but it was because our expectations were so low for Jeff Horn. He was 16-0-1 with 11 KOs, and all of his victories came against no names, which I highlighted before the fight even began. I never heard of any one of those fighters that he had beaten. So he beat Manny Pacquiao tonight, but he didn't beat him. It was bogus, and as far as I'm concerned, even though there have been controversial decisions in the UFC, the bottom line is clear. You usually see a sport in the UFC where they give you the fights that you want to see when you want to see it, and you usually don't see this kind of bogus decision. Controversial, yes, but not something as flagrantly bogus as this. It's incredibly disappointing that the judges, 2 of them from the United States, by the way, would make this kind of decision. Makes no sense to me.
You look at what this does to the sport of boxing. And the referee came in between round 9 and 10. He was about to stop this, even in addition to that. What can boxing do to make sure that this dark clouds do not remain over?
Well, you got to hold the judges accountable. You got to find a way to make sure that judges can evade making these kind of bogus decisions. Listen, it's good for boxing in this sense. Because Manny Pacquiao looks so vulnerable, now you've got a situation, the Errol Spence Jr.'s, the Terrence Crawfords, the Kell Brooks, the Keith Thurmans, the Danny Garcias, and others. They're going to be clamoring for Manny Pacquiao because he had 13 consecutive fights without a KO. So now he's not as formidable and scary as he was when he was putting guys like Ricky Hatton to sleep or beating up Miguel Cotto so bad that his wife had to leave the arena. No, you don't have that going on right now. So you'll want Manny Pacquiao. So in that sense, it's good for boxing. But having judges make these kind of decisions is not good at all.
Controversial, certainly, in Brisbane, but very entertaining evening. We
Yeah,
enjoyed it. Boxing
was.
back in the forefront and on ESPN. Stephen A. Smith here to see it all.
Thank you.
All right, lower the shock value now. The Warriors have reassembled just like that. Our Chris Haynes and Adrian Wojnarowski are reporting, as well as Andre Iguodala himself. Check the Twitter. The former NBA Finals MVP has agreed to a 3-year, $48 million deal with the Warriors. Now, it is not monopoly money that they're playing with, but it sort of feels like that considering the numbers that are flying around Oakland the last few days. Stephen Curry signed the richest contract in NBA history, a 5-year, $201 million deal. And in addition to him, you throw in Iguodala, and then also Sean Livingston and David West. Chris Haynes joins us now in the studio. Iguodala had options. He visited a few teams, including the Spurs and the Rockets. Why did he decide to stay home?
Well, look, the initial offer that the Golden State Warriors put out on the table was dramatically low from what he accepted right now with the 3 years, $48 million. Now, Warriors did not want to make that third year a full guarantee. They wanted to put some partial elements to that. That gave, and then also money-wise, it was around 11, 10 million range. Andre Iguodala was able to get 16. So when you're talking about a 33-year-old, promising 33-year-old who still is very productive in this league and what he provides to the Golden State Warriors, it could not be replaced. If the Warriors did not make a deal with Iguodala, they couldn't have used that money to go out and spend it on somebody else outside of that team. So it was a very great day for Andre Iguodala and the Warriors, for that matter.
There's no real drama here because Kevin Durant's the only player sort of left out at this point. He declined the player option, but he intends to resign. He was only sort of waiting to see how much money it was going to take to bring Iguodala back into the fold. What is the timeline now for KD?
Well, what KD is going to do, because in order for Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston to be taken care of, Durant had to opt out so the Warriors can keep the bird rights to Iguodala and Livingston. Now, Durant will sign last. It will July 7th is the first day where teams can officially sign their new deals, and Stephen Curry will get his in along with everybody else. Durant will sign last, and what we're being told is right now it'll probably be another 1-1, where Durant will probably be making around $31 million that first year and $33 million the next year. The second year will probably be a player option, and then after that, he can set himself up for the Supermax.
I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure he can survive on the 31
He'll be all right.
to 33. He'll be all right.
Don't feel sorry for him.
He's all right, too. That's Chris Haynes.